But I think the biggest brush with process was when I built an e-commerce store in Indonesia, because that's what you do when you're 25.
Random.
The idea of staying in a stable job scared me more than leaving.
It took me a very long time to get my name out in the I mean, well, comparatively not long, because I've just been here for 19 months.
Well, I was going to say, you've only been here for 19 months, but not that very long. So, hello and welcome back to another episode of She's the Boss. I am joined today by Michelle Gyimah, who is the founder of Equality Pays. Thank you for joining me this morning, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
And before I get into the interview, if you are new here, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you're the first to know when a new video is released. And also make sure that you click the like button, you leave comments, and you share if these conversations are useful to you. So, Equality Pays. Tell me more about how you started the business, why you started the business, and why you called it Equality Pays.
Yeah. Well, essentially, I worked for the Equality and Human Rights Commission for about 10 years. So they are a independent of government body, and their remit is to provide advice and guidance for employers, educational establishments, and service providers on all things to do with the Equality Act and human rights. I kind of fell into that. I started off on the helpline. I was advising colleges and schools on issues around equality, and I worked my way up in the organisation, worked within the legal team, and then I found myself in the policy team, and I was doing work on equal pay and gender pay gap, which at the time I'd never heard anything about, so it was a complete eye-opener for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I also did some work on pregnancy and maternity discrimination. Very varied, running workshops, seminars, writing guidance for employers, etc. And I've really enjoyed that. Then I went off to have my first baby, and I just kind of felt that there must be more to kind of working life than staying with an employer. And I've been reading about online businesses, and I was just in a space where I thought, well, I've got lots of different skills, and I wanted to use them in the way that I wanted to do it. Because you know what it's like when you're at work, there are kind of constraints around things you can do and say. So I decided that I was going to set up my business on my own. And that was almost 5 years ago. And I have to admit, I was so naive. I thought, do you know what? I'll write a website, I'll press publish, and loads of people will be queuing up at the door wanting to work with me. And obviously, you can tell by your face.
Like that.
It doesn't happen like that at all. Mm-hmm. So it was a very steep learning curve for me, in what it's like to run a business, and also to be able to do that, online. Kind of fast forward a few years, I wasn't really making much money, and I kind of got to a crunch point where I had to make a decision. Basically, I had to go back to work. You know what it's like. You got a family, you got bills to pay, etc. So I did that and tried to keep it running on the side. There was a period when I did really experience quite bad burnout, because I was trying to work before going to work, then I was going to work, and then in the evenings after my little one was in bed, I was trying to put in the hours then, and I felt like I was just constantly chasing my tail and having conversations during my lunch break and weekends, and I was getting to a point where I was just feeling like this isn't working, and I was feeling like I really wanted to give up. So I took a step back. I took a couple of months where I just had nothing to do with it, and I just switched off, allowed myself just to chill out and sleep, not getting up crazy hours, not going to bed crazy hours. And then I changed jobs because I was working at a university when I went back to my old employer, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and I started to ease myself back into the world of equalities. And by this point, I was a little bit older, a little bit wiser. I felt a little bit more confident about what it was that I was trying to achieve. And I felt that it was the right time, because there's a lot of talk around gender pay gap reporting coming up, which is the main part of my business, which is why it's called Equality Pays, because I feel that it does. And so I dipped my toe in the water again, putting the feelers out, talking on LinkedIn about pay gaps, etc., showcasing what I knew. And I feel that this time round, because of all the things I learned before, I was in a much better place, much more ready, much better boundaries, much less procrastination. And the fact that I had a second baby has cut out massive amounts of procrastination. I just really don't have the time for it now.
There's no time to be procrastinating.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so where I'm at now is that I am completely freelance again. I've got 2 kids, and the business seems to be moving in the right direction, especially with all of the talk around gender pay gap reporting, and it's here to stay, and it's generating a lot of conversations with businesses that they never used to have before, or they used to have them behind closed doors. And we're also in a time where there's a lot of people expect a lot more public accountability as well, and I think that's a new experience for a lot of businesses around having to explain why they do the things that they do, and to defend them, and to either accept that they're wrong and do something different, or to justify what they've been doing. And so that's where I'm at the moment. It's a very interesting time. When I first started out, nobody wanted to talk to me about equal pay or the gender pay gap, and now, kind of almost 5 years later, it's very different. And I have to say, I'm in a good space, and I like it.
No, that's good. So you said when you initially started, you was kind of really expecting all these, all clients, I guess, be calling your phone and you being rushed off your feet. When that didn't happen, how disheartening was that for you? And you said you took some time out and then you came back, but how difficult was it for you to kind of put those feelings of doubt to one side and jump back in?
It was hard, because I think the thing that I didn't realize is that when you run your own business, everything becomes personal. And the reason why it's personal is because it's just you doing everything. So you are CEO, you are the accountant, you are the marketing person, you are the social media person. And so if, when you're putting in all those hours, you don't see any results, you start to think, well, it must be me. It must be that, I'm not good enough, my face doesn't fit, my messaging is off, my brand is terrible, my copywriting is awful. And so it took a long time for me to realize actually it's just business, and just because somebody doesn't like what I'm doing or talks to me and then decide that they don't want to work with me doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. It means that there's a disconnect somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But I can say that now, but 2-3 years ago I would have been crying into my cereal that I'm just terrible at this and it's not for me and everyone else can do it except for me.
No, I think that that idea of somebody contacting you and you speaking to them and then you thinking, oh, I've got the business, and then them saying, actually, I'm not going to do it. That might be the worst one for me. I hate that. I prefer to just not get any contact in the first place. Because it is that, well, when we spoke, it sounded like you wanted to do it. So what is it?
Yeah.
And I think that can be quite difficult, especially when you first start out. So the fact that you went through that, but then was still able to come back, I think is really testament to your resolve and resilience.
Yeah, I kind of felt that because I had a good group of other business women, and we'd always talk about what's going on with us, and I tell them what was happening, and so many of them would say, well, that was me 3 years ago, and look where I am now. So I'd just be like, okay, if they can do it and come out the other side and tell me what they did to try and get out of it, or tell me that's basically a rite of passage, then why not me? And that's something I always try to think, well, why not me? And if not now, when? Mm-hmm. Because nothing was going to really come to you really easily. And I look back now, I just think, oh my God, I was so naive. But but I didn't know, and I wasn't in those communities in the start, and it's there's so much trial and error. But I think for me, what has been helpful, what allowed me to be able to come back, was having that group of women that I could talk to and sound out my innermost fears, and to know that loads of them had been through it and they'd come out the other side. So it wasn't a case of, well, this is it now, you've tried it, and so you have to pack it in and you have to go back to work. It was a case of, well, no, there are options, but everyone has to go through their own stuff, I think, before they can get to where they really can shine, and that was my period.
I regularly talk about the importance of having mentors and coaches and having a strong support network, and obviously you're saying you had these women around you. How did you formulate that support group?
Well, that was actually by accident. It was through a course that I bought. That's another thing. I am total course junkie. When I started this business, I knew nothing about the online world, and it was like opening the door and stepping into Narnia, because there's just so many things that I could buy and courses that I could take, and all of them would revolutionize my business. And so I went through a period of like buying this, buying that, and looking back I realized that I think it was fear that I wasn't good enough, and feeling that, oh, if I just buy this one more course, this is the one, this is the golden penny, and once I implement everything in it, a business of flight will take off. So I bought a lot of courses, but there's one that has been really good for me, and it's been around money mindset. And so it came with it's like a 12-week course which you can do self-study. The person that runs it, she runs it live every few months, but there's also a Facebook community, and there's women all over the world, all different types of businesses, all walks of life. And I have to admit, that is the group that I've posted in the most, because people just ask questions. They'll say, I'm having really bad fights with my partner about this, what advice would you give? And somebody will say, I'm about to close down my business because I'm facing burnout, what advice have you got? And everything in between. And so I think I was lucky in the sense that one of the courses that I bought was really good for me, and the community has been fantastic, because you can ask those questions that you may be reticent to ask people that you know in real life, especially when it's about your family as well. You live with them, and you're just like, this is happening to me, and my business is so personal, and my partner or my mum or my sister is saying this, and I'm feeling that. And then you can go to the group and they can say, well, maybe they're just projecting, or maybe this is just a rite of passage, and it's well-meaning, but they don't understand your business. And it's almost like they can bring you down from when you're up there, like stressing, bring you down so you can see things in a very clear way, because everything's, it's all like heightened emotions so much of the time.
And you kind of led me into the next question, actually. So you've had those kind of women who support you, but then when it comes to your own family and your personal friendships, how supportive were people in you taking this step? And also, you said that you started the business not long after you had your first child. Did that have an impact on people's opinions on whether you should or shouldn't do it? Because I know for me, when I had my daughter, and I had a business before, but I sold it when she was born, and then I started a business again. And it was a lot of, well, you've got a child now, you have to have a job. Why would you not have a job? Who's going to pay the nursery fees? And it was just a lot of negative chatter. So how did you have that, and how did you overcome it?
I tended not to talk to kind of wider family too much, and I think in the early days it's because I was really nervous of what other people would think about what I was trying to do, so I didn't talk very much. But sometimes you get the odd comment like, oh, are you still doing that? And I might say something like, oh, it's a bit slow at the moment, and they'll say, oh, well, the economy's tough, isn't it? Maybe you should just get a job. Some of that stuff. And your insides would be like, and you'd have like smile plus on your face thing. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, but that's what people know. We're conditioned to think that the norm is to go out and get a job, and so if you decide to do something different, there will be pushback from people that either don't understand it, or sometimes I don't think jealousy is the right word, but maybe they're kind of admiring the fact that you're brave enough to do it,
and they're not,
but don't say that to you. They might make a sarcastic comment instead. And so I soon learned that if there were people around that who would make those kind of comments, I soon learned that the best thing to do was not to engage, because I'd want to share things that I would consider a win, which might not necessarily be a client, but it might be still a business win for me. And then they might say, oh, when's the money coming?
And it's that line there. That is the line I hate. And I've had that throughout my career, and it is that, well, you're supposed to be rich by now. Well, can you give me time, please? Can I have a moment?
Yeah, and and this is one of the things that I used to go back time and time again to this group. I mean, if I do a search on all of the things that I asked this group, it's the same thing quite often. And what they would say is that, but that is a measure that other people understand, and people will always ask that question. And to a certain extent, it's a fair question to ask, because when you're in business, apart from doing what you like, you do need to earn money. And so there isn't anything wrong with talking about the money aspect, because it's supposed to be making money. But when it feels like it's the only measure of success, and they're not interested in anything else, and the personal development aspect, or the networking, or the confidence, or the difference you make in people's lives, when none of those things matter, that's when it really grates on you, because then you feel like, you're being set up to fail, that if you're not a millionaire, then you're a failure. When actually, if you're making enough to pay the bills and you're happy, then why isn't that a success in of itself? If you're making enough and you can be flexible around your family requirements, why isn't that a success? So for me, it was about defining what success meant to me, and then being very careful about who I spoke to about what I was doing. Somebody was overly negative and sarcastic and critical, I just wouldn't tell them anything. They asked me sometimes they'd ask me how business was going, I'd be like, yeah, it's really great, and then change the subject, because I just think I don't want to get into it with you, because I know what's going to come next. And you probably don't mean to be mean, and you don't think you're being mean, but it just takes up energy, because then I start getting into that space of, well, maybe that person's right, and I just haven't got time for it. And it's not necessarily true. So I'm careful about who I talk to about my business, and what I tell them. And that goes to my partner as well, but we're in a better place now. But before, there would be tense conversations about, well, you're working all these hours, where's the outcome, where are the clients, where's the money? So there was a lot of that going on, which we've managed to work through now, because of obviously less procrastination. I'm in a better place, things are different, so I do have clients now. And it's nice to be in a space where people that were doubting you at the beginning and didn't know what you were doing, and were happy to tell you that they didn't think what you were doing was right. It's nice to now be in a space where they can see what you've been working towards, and they're like, oh, you can do that, oh, that sounds brilliant, or you know what you should do now, or you know where you should go, who you should speak to. And you think, 4 years ago you were telling me to get a job, and then you think, okay, I've not thought of that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I love what you said about success and how success is measured, because for me, I actually would say that if you're making enough money to pay the bills and I guess to get by, but you also have the flexibility of working for yourself, and you also get to do something that you love, I would say that makes you a greater success than someone who's making lots of money but are stressed, hates what they do, don't have time to spend with family. So for people that are always looking for, obviously you need to get paid, but for people that judge a business owner or a freelancer or an entrepreneur solely on whether they're rich or not, I really just think that's a really negative way of looking at it, particularly considering, for me, I know when I speak to a lot of people who are in kind of quite senior positions generating lots of money, a lot of the time they're not happy and they're very stressed. So what makes them successful just because their bank account may be bigger? And I always find it a strange way of thinking. And then relating to what you said in regards to your partner, I have had challenges with my partner and husband. He was a partner, now he's my husband. And initially, when I was doing my first business, we were both young and free, and it was fine. But then when I had a child, it was kind of like, well, you're gonna have to get a job now, because now we've got a child. And my thing was, when you met me, I didn't have a job. Since we've been together, I've not had a job. The fact that we've had a child should not mean that now all of a sudden I'm gonna get a job when I've never had one before. And we had a lot of back and forth, a lot of arguments about it, because to me, I am an entrepreneur, and if you're trying to put me into a box, all that's going to happen is I'm going to end up resenting you. And we managed to come to a middle ground. I'm able to still do my business, and I do a contract as well, which works perfectly for me. And it also works for him because he thinks there's a steady income coming in and she's happy going off doing her interviews and all of that stuff. But I know for some other couples, it's led to them actually breaking up. So I know how I've managed to get around it, but what tips would you give to someone that's in a relationship with someone or married to someone who doesn't really understand the importance of them going it alone and are struggling to get them to understand, I guess? What kind of hints and tips would you give?
Yeah, if I was to have my time again and, you know, announce that I'm starting a business, I would do a bit more research actually as to what it actually involved. I think I bought a how-to guide, dummy's guide for business, which didn't really help at all. But the key thing that I didn't do, I didn't talk to my partner about what it was I was doing or what I was trying to achieve, and I didn't set any goals either. And the reason being because I thought I'd make this amazing website and then clients would come running. So I had no goals. I wasn't talking to him about what I was doing, and I was spending hours and hours, you know, lost in the internet online world, buying courses left and software left, right and centre. So if you were to take a step back and look at it from his perspective, I basically disappeared off, you know, into the office upstairs, and he wouldn't see me for hours. But then on the flip side, there wasn't any clients either. So there was lots of missed opportunities for conversations, and what we didn't, because we weren't having those conversations, I wasn't being challenged by him either. And so it was very easy for me to get into a rabbit warren of what I was doing, but with no one to hold me accountable and say, you know, well, what is the outcome of all these hours? So the first thing I would say is definitely communication around what it is that you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, and to set some measurable goals, whether that's financial goals or timescale, and saying, right, I'm going to give this my all for 6 months. My plan is to get our clients to cover our bills for 6 months, and if I don't do it by then, we're going to relook at the goal and think about, well, do I need to get a part-time job to help facilitate that, or, you know, what is it in my strategies that's not working to help me move forward? And so for me, it really is about communication. And the second thing is about being honest about what you need. So whether that is a physical space in the house to do the work, or, you know, you might say, okay, I have a part-time job and I'm starting this business as well. You know, 3 evenings a week I'm going to be working on this, or it's going to take up every Sunday, especially if you've got kids and stuff, you know, because you've got so many jobs to do. And I think very often I would get into a place of, I knew what I needed, but I wouldn't communicate that with him. And then he'd be like, well, I need this. And I'd be like, well, I need this for the business. And there was no teamwork. And I think that's something that I never really anticipated, that because this is my business, it's not like work where I go to work and I come home and I leave it. It's all encompassing. And so it's about setting those boundaries around, you know, time and support, and, you know, I need you to take the kids on today, or, you know, these 3 hours a week are for me to do my business. And, you know, and negotiating, oh, well, he might say, okay, well, I'm going out on these 2 nights a week to do, you know, sports, or, you know, whatever it is. So the key thing is the communication, and the earlier that you can do it, I think the easier it is. Having said that, it's also important to remember that there will be resistance, because you're changing the game, you're doing things differently. I mean, the point that you're making about people's marriages breaking up, I saw this in this group so many times, and it became a running joke that the person who's running the course said, lots of people, you know, think that women take this course and then they all leave their husbands. And she was saying that it's not that, it's just that, you know, some people come to a realization of something that they probably knew deep down, but they were growing apart, and, you know, starting a business and wanting it to be successful and putting in the work has maybe just revealed much more clearly the cracks and divisions that were there. And that's not to say that everybody has that, but, you know, you are resetting boundaries and you are doing things differently. And I think when one person in a relationship starts to do something different, it can bring up resistance from the other person, and often that comes up in the form of rows. And it's not that they don't want you to have a business, but it's just that they haven't got the vision, they can't see how it would work. So one of the things I learned from this group is that they was always say, it's not their job to be as excited about your business as you are. It's your job to tell them the vision and to hold it and to work towards it. And eventually they'll either come with you or they won't. And that sounds really harsh, but I mean, imagine most people's relationships will make it, but some won't. So, but it's about keeping that communication open, I would definitely say.
So within your business, what would you say the greatest impact, or the thing that the greatest impact you've had on a client, or the thing that you're the proudest of?
I think because of the work that I do, it's quite sensitive, and it's one of those, it's an anomaly in the sense that organisations have known about their gender pay gaps for years, but they've never ever had to publicly report it. So they're in a place where everybody has the same problem, but nobody wants to admit it, but they're all being forced to do it. So there's an element of that kind of shame that they've been sat on this and they've been forced to do something about it. And so I'm well aware that even though the regulations say they have to, produce this data, there's a lot of reticence. They don't want to. They don't want to talk. They want to talk about, what it is that they're doing. And so for me, I think the biggest impact that I have is around helping them to almost come to terms with their data, come to terms with, the actions that have led them to where they are. But the impact that I have is around getting them to kind of drop the shame, but be bold enough to take actions around what do they need to do to make a difference. And I was with a client a few days ago, and I had put together a proposal of a series of things that they could do. And at the start of the meeting, I think there was still that feeling of, this is what we used to do, and that's probably why we have such a big pay gap. But by the end of the conversation, there was a group of us talking around, what we're going to present to the senior leadership team. I could see shoulders back and a bit of a bounce in the step, and feeling like, oh, you know what, we've got a plan, and yeah, I'm up for the challenge and we can do it. And it's so different to when I first met them. It's a lot, kind of hunched shoulders and saying the figure kind of like, oh, it's gone up and it's been really bad. And the journey and the transformation, we've not even started implementing anything yet. This is just, talking about the plan. I can see that they're thinking, okay, this might be a bit of a hard sell because we're talking about business behaviours, but I'm confident, we have a plan and we think it's workable, and there's radical things in there and there's easy things. There's a nice mix. And they're like, I can see them looking at each other like, okay, what she's saying is all right, actually. We could do this. And that's what I like. I like that aha moment of going from like shame to confidence. And I think that's really important. Then I feel like, okay, I've done my job well, because you want people to feel good about themselves. You want them to feel good about what they're going to do next. Because, you want good results, but they're doing it from a place of shame or feeling that they have to do it. It's disingenuous. And honestly, I want to feel that I'm doing this for the right reasons, and I've got robust actions, and I feel confident about it.
Have you had any situations, whether that in business or in your employment, where somebody has been really resistant to it, and how have you managed that?
It comes up quite a bit, and I now, in the early days, I would be like, oh, that's all about me, I've used the wrong language and they've not like this and they've not like that. But now I just think it's part of the course, because asking people to change their behaviours, whether it's personal or business, is hard, because we are all so entrenched in our habits, and it's not uncommon for people to get very defensive around things that they've done in the past. But my thing now is, it's nothing personal. I'm not there to attack them. I'm just there to ask them thought-provoking questions and to get them to think about things differently. And I can't win everybody over, but I've realised after quite a while that it's not my job to win everybody over. You know what it's like when I've done it when I've bought a course or booked coaching with a coach, and if I'm not ready to do the work, then I don't see the results. But suddenly something clicks where I'm ready, and you think, this is what they were trying to say, or this is the message that was trying to come through, but I wasn't in the right place. And I think, well, if that happens to me personally, then that happens to businesses. You know, they may contact me and think we're ready to do stuff on our pay gaps, and then when I start asking the hard questions, I'm like, whoa, actually, you know, we'll give that to you. And I think, well, you know, horses for courses. You know, when you're ready, you'll either come to me, or you'll go to someone else, or you'll carry on what you're doing for another few years and then come back to me. So I know that resistance is part of the game, and I don't get stressed about organisations that decide that they're not ready to do the work, because that's their journey. There's plenty of others who are ready, who I can work with now.
What are your kind of key goals? I know you said I know that you had a baby recently. How are you managing juggling having 2 children and still reaching for the goals, and kind of what are you trying to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months?
In the early days of the second baby being born, so she's 7.5 months now, it was hard, really hard. And there were times when I was questioning, you know, why was I doing this? Why was I not just sitting at home relaxing with this baby, enjoying my maternity pay for my last job and just chilling? And I would even get people saying to me, because I think I gave a talk in November and she was born in September, and I'd say, we've got, you know, 6-week-old baby at home, and I'd be like, 6 weeks, what are you doing here? And all this stuff. And sometimes I think to myself, what am I doing here? But, you know, I had goals in mind. You know, I had financial goals like paying the mortgage, as well as, you know, bigger business goals. And I have to admit, I did find it really hard in the beginning, because obviously, you know, babies don't sleep very much, and it's going from one who's, my eldest is 6, so, you know, he sleeps through the night, to a baby that doesn't. It just throws everything kind of out of proportion. But I try to remember that everybody is in a season, and so whatever is happening now is not going to be like this in 6 months' time. And so I try to always focus on that. So yes, it was hard when she was waking up multiple times, and, you know, even though my partner's, you know, totally hands-on, it's still really hard work. But I think focusing on the fact that it's not forever, and also that I am my own boss, and so if there are days where I feel like I just can't or don't engage with, you know, clients or social media or all the behind the scenes stuff, then that's perfectly fine. And the goal for me is around creating a business that fits around my family life. So flexibility is really important to me. Big reason why I didn't go out and look for another job, to be honest. Not to say that there aren't flexible jobs out there, but I just felt like, I'm sure I can make this work. I'm sure I have enough brains and skills to be able to design flexibility my way. And the wider goal is, you know, we, as a family, we would like to travel. So I want to build a business that doesn't necessarily rely on me being, you know, here in the UK all of the time. And so that's another goal that I'm working towards over the next kind of 12 to 18 months around. Well, how do I package up my services in a way that affords me that flexibility, so that we can do those things as a family, and at the same time, you know, still earn enough to pay all of the bills and have the lifestyle that we want. So for me, it's around having kind of 1 or 2 key business financial goals, and then working out what those small milestones are, and being careful not to reach that place of burnout again, of, you know, working every spare minute. And it's hard when, you know, you can run your business on your phone. It's so
I'll turn that phone off.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you know, sometimes I think, well, you know, maybe I need to just leave it in another room or something. But, you know, but again, for me, it's about working out, well, what my parameters are, what works for me and what doesn't, and eliminating the stuff that doesn't work, so I can focus on, you know, the bigger goals that I'm looking for.
Great. 3 pieces of advice you'd give to a young woman or a new mother that was thinking of starting a business.
Find other people who are doing the same thing. Running a business can be lonely, and in the very early days I was totally alone, because I didn't know that there were networks out there for people like me. So find them. they may be local where you can meet up, or they may be online, but whatever works for you, find those people, because they will understand what you're going through. They'll understand the personal highs and lows, the successes and failures, the feeling that Monday morning you're like, yeah, we're going to do this, and then by Tuesday afternoon you're like, I'm going to pack it in and get a job, and everything in between. And you need those other people that understand what that's like. So I would definitely say find that group as early on as you can. The second thing is to get your partner on board, if you have a partner, or to get your family and friends on board, and in terms of giving you the support that you're looking for. So they may not be great at giving you business advice, but you need a physical support network around you to come and take the baby or the kids, or just to have somebody to support you in whatever it is that you need, because you can't, it's impossible to do on your own. It really is. I tried it doesn't work. So it's good to get that support network. And the third, I would say, which sounds really stupid when I say it, but I really didn't do this in the early days, and that's to focus on money-making activities. I spent so long buying courses, buying software. I was just basically procrastinating. You're in business because you love what you do, but also you need to make money. So set aside, the first parts of your day, whenever your working day is, and focus on, well, what are the money-making activities that you can do? Because that's what's going to keep your business going. And then look at all of the stuff around, your website and branding and all the rest of it. So if I had my time again, they're the three things that I would focus on first.
Fab. If people want to find out more about your business and you, where can they go to get that information?
I am always on LinkedIn. It's my favourite social media platform. So I'm just under my name, Michelle Gyimah. So happy to connect with anybody who wants to talk to me. My Twitter handle is @equalitypays. And I also have a website, which is equalitypays.co.uk.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really enjoyed the conversation. If you are watching and you've enjoyed that conversation, please press that like button. Please write a comment if anything in the conversation has really resonated with you, and please share with those in your networks who you think may benefit from hearing this. And remember, always think big, take action, and keep pushing. Thanks for watching.